Discussing what we saw in game one and in game two of the 2024 NBA Finals. And, I had a comment on our video, which of course, Brandon was available on all audio and video podcasting platforms. But on YouTube the other day, I had a comment from the clip where I was talking about my prediction for the series. And those of you that listened on Thursday's podcast know that I had predicted the Boston Celtics to win this series in a seventh game in the TD Garden in Boston. And I apologize that I don't have the username in front of me right now, but the comment essentially said, you take a look at the last four NBA finals prior to this one. 2020, LeBron, biggest player in the series, won that series. 2021, Phoenix may have been a well-rounded, deeper team than Milwaukee's team, but Giannis, best player in the series, Milwaukee won. Boston was a deeper team than Golden State. Steph Curry was the best player in the series. Golden State won. Miami may be a more well-rounded team than Denver. Nikola Jokic, best player in the series. Denver won. Some of those I would argue. Miami was obviously very deep. I thought Golden State still had a lot of punch off their bench in those two particular finals. But from what we've seen over the course of these NBA playoffs, and I said way back in April when these playoffs first began, I predicted this was going to be the changing of the guard NBA playoffs, where a lot of our older stars would either not make the postseason. Of course, Steph Curry, Golden State, they made the play-in tournament, though technically, in my eyes, it's not the postseason. You would have stars like LeBron, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Giannis, who obviously didn't even play in the playoffs, be gone by round one or round two. And by round two, Kyrie Irving was the oldest star left in these playoffs, and Kyrie is still the oldest star left in these playoffs. But we saw young guys like Anthony Edwards emerge on the stage, though at that young age, they were not quite ready to take the mantle and get to the NBA Finals. And while Luka Doncic has been spectacular, and he always puts up video game like numbers, obviously close to a triple double every single night. I said that when you take a look at this series and when you've taken a look at these playoffs in general, when you really boil down to it, it has not come down to the stars and the superstars. It has come down to role players. Look no further than the Indiana Pacers. Jalen Brunson, I believe, was the best player in that series. As much as Anthony Edwards may have sometimes outdueled Nikola Jokic, we all acknowledge Nikola Jokic was probably the best player in that Denver Minnesota series, yet it came down to Naz Reid and Karl Anthony Towns hitting more shots than, Aaron Gordon and, KCP and Michael Porter. Jamal Murray was great, but in the end, Minnesota got production from Conley and Vanderbilt and Naz Reid, who I already mentioned. And when you take a look at this series so far for the first two games, obviously the return of Kristaps Porzingis, who I think right now personally is the MVP of these finals. I predicted Jason Tatum to finally get his moment in a back and forth series with Luka Doncic, as now more people, including Jason Kidd, has acknowledged that Jaylen Brown is their best player in the series. I know some people think that, in between games, Jason Kidd was sort of kidding about that. I don't think that. I've said it for months that I think Jaylen Brown is better than Jason Tatum. I think he's Boston's number one option. But regardless of who you think is the better player, Boston's got Kristaps Porzingis now, who's putting in buckets at a rapid pace, and he did not look afraid of the big stage. He looked more ready to play after being off, 5, 6 weeks, whatever it was, more than Tatum, especially in game two. Even though Porzingis had that huge game one, Tatum didn't really show up in game one. But again, Boston didn't really need Tatum in either of these first two games because they got production from Derek White, because they got Peyton Pritchard making a half-court shot, because they got, shot making from Sam Hauser, Drew Holiday, Al Horford. They got the terrific defense from Porzingis, who's had some incredible blocks. Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, who are just picking the pockets. And then Kyrie Irving in game two. He puts up 8 points in the first quarter, and by the end of the third, he's got 11 points. That's not gonna get it done. And PJ Washington, who hit a quick three to start game two, did not hit a three in game one. He's been huge for Dallas. Could not get it done. Derek Lively and the other bigs that Dallas has. They're not getting it done in the scoring department. So for me, for Dallas, it's really been Luka or bust. Luka has been, I think Luka, Porzingis, Jaylen Brown have probably been the three best players on the floor in this series. Boston has two of them, and one of them's coming off the bench. And Drew Holiday has been terrific defensively. And again, if you get Holiday, Pritchard, White, Horford, you don't need Tatum to go for 25. You don't need Brown to go for 30 because you're getting production from everyone. And they talked about it, last night on the broadcast in game two. Boston, obviously, they started off slow shooting the ball, but Dallas missed 7 free throws, which was critical in game two. And that, really was the difference a lot for the game because even though Boston kept struggling shooting, Joe Mazzulla didn't care about it because he knows historically they're just going to keep knocking down shots. So I said before the series that Dallas needed to steal one of these two games in Boston to make it a series. Now, could Dallas theoretically win both games at the American Airlines Center Wednesday, tomorrow night, and Friday? Yes, they could, but Boston hasn't lost a road game this postseason. So, it's very hard for me to believe in the fact that the Celtics are going to lose two straight on the road, that we're going to go back to TD Garden, tied at 2 games apiece. I don't think that is the case. I think Dallas will have one very good game at home that will probably be game three. Everybody will be on fire. Gafford will put in some buckets, and Lively will put in buckets, and Kyrie will have a great game to go alongside Luka, and Tim Hardaway make it in the game. And, Dallas is going to get a lot of production. They'll probably win game three. I think game four, and again, who knows, this could be reversed, but I think game four will be the closest game this series will ever see. It'll go down back and forth. One of Derek White, Drew Holiday will make a key bucket. Boston will win. We'll go back to Boston Monday night, TD Garden. And I do believe that a week from the time of this recording, June 17th, 2024, we'll be talking about the Boston Celtics as the NBA Finals 2024 champions. So yes, I have amended my pick. I did have Celtics in 7. I am now going Celtics in 5. This series does feel over. Luka's been great. You can make an argument, again, even if the Mavericks were to lose this series, especially if they get it back to 7 games somehow, Luka could be the MVP of the whole finals. It's like the discussions we get in 2015, 2016 when talking about LeBron, especially in 2015, the year Andre Iguodala won the finals. And there was a lot of discourse about would you give the MVP to a losing player? I sort of feel that way about Luka, but in the end, again, nobody's helping him. Boston's just been great. They caked walk for the East. They got a couple breaks. Jimmy Butler goes down. Jared Allen goes down. Donovan Mitchell goes down. Tyrese Halliburton goes down. But at the end of the day, what they're showing us is it doesn't matter because they withstood all of it. They are proving that, they learned their lesson from 2 years ago against Golden State. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown are growing up right before our eyes. And as I said, the NBA gods up there are basically saying this is the Boston Celtics year. It is meant to be. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown finally break through. And it's pretty disappointing from an NBA standpoint because outside of some competitive games and outside of, very few competitive series, in my opinion, these NBA finals have lacked lackluster urgency here as we've gotten into the later rounds. And on the biggest stage, the guy that has come up so huge for Boston, the acquisitions they made, Drew Holiday, and then Kristaps Porzingis so far, is proving to be the difference in this series. Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.